Welcome back, everyone. Dub here again, this time with the requested Druid healing build. We're going to go over gear, traits, skills, some usage stuff, and there'll be a gameplay clip at the end. So we get right into it with gear. The build is full minstrels, armor minstrels, weapon minstrels, trinkets minstrels. Ruin of the Monk for that 10% increased healing effectiveness, as well as the boon duration and healing. Your main staff is going to feature transference and renewal. Your stacking staff will feature life and either renewal or transference. Second sigil really doesn't matter. You're going to stack your life stacks, your healing power stacks, and then swap back to your main staff and never leave it. Sigil of Renewal heals on weapon swap. Celestial Avatar counts as a weapon swap, so you will be getting that every time you go into and out of Celestial Avatar. Going over traits, we're going to do Skirmishing, Nature Magic, and Druid. First one reduces the cooldown of your trap and increases the boons it gives. That is your Healing Spring. Next one is Spotter. It's going to give 20 to 30% Fury uptime on your party. Quick Draw, one of the most important traits in the build, is going to reduce the first weapon skill you use after swapping weapons. And again, as I mentioned, CA counts as a weapon swap. Moving to Nature Magic, Instinctive Reaction, you're going to gain quickness when you're struck below the health threshold of 50%. It also gives you a little bit of a healing power buff. Every time you Spirit of Arrival, every time you swap pets, you're going to grant Vigor and Fury to your party. That adds on top of the 20 to 30% you're already getting from Spotter, so it's pretty nice. And then Invigorating Bond is going to heal around the caster every time you use a beast ability. For those who are not familiar, the activated abilities on your pets are considered beast abilities. So every time you use one of these, it's also healing around the pet or around the caster. Druid Clarity. Every time you go into CA, you cleanse conditions from allies. Verdant Etching. Using a glyph grants protection. You have 4 glyphs in the build. And then one of the other most important ones is Lingering Light. While you're in Celestial Avatar, you do 20% increased healing to allies. When you leave Celestial Avatar, you get a 10-second buff. That is a 10% increased healing to others as well. So that's the gear. That's the build. And now we'll go over skills. So your Staff 1. Your spam skill is a beam. It hits 3 targets, allies or enemies. You can target an ally or an enemy with it. It will heal your allies and do damage to your enemies. Skill 2 is Astral Wisp. This attaches to an ally or an enemy, and it heals around it in a circle. This is one of the best healing skills on the staff kit. You're going to keep this on cooldown. I suggest targeting the commander with it. We'll go over that, some tips and tricks later. Ancestral Grace is a large chunky heal, also a blast finisher, and it is also a movement skill. It's going to help you move around the battlefield. It's going to do some good burst healing when needed. Skill 4, Vine Surge, is going to emob enemies, and it clears Cripple, Emob, and Chill from allies. So you want to cast this from the back of the party, cleansing condies off of allies, and emobbing enemies as we push in. One of my favorite skills on the staff is Sublime Conversion. This is a water field. It turns enemy projectiles into healing, and anyone that passes through it, there's no target cap, will be granted regeneration. So you see it on the ground, so what it looks like. You walk through it, you get regen. And you can't double up on it, but it's still pretty powerful. Healing Spring, I cannot stress this enough, is a trap. It will do nothing if you do not cast it on an enemy or have an enemy walk through it. It will just sit there and look pretty. So make sure you're using this when you can guarantee that an enemy will either be already inside of it or pass through it, so that you can actually get the heal, the Condi Cleanse, and the regen. Now we're going to go over glyphs, and for glyphs, I'm going to pull up a browser. So the glyphs, for those who aren't familiar, have 2 sides to them. The non-CA side, and then the CA side. So we'll go over the non-CA side first. Glyph of Alignment. This is an emob and a bleed on 5 targets. If you're cleaning up or trying to catch people, you can use this outside of CA. Otherwise, I would save it. Glyph of Equality. This is your main stun break in the build. Outside of CA, it dazes nearby foes, and it breaks you out of a stun. And then Glyph of Unity. Outside of CA is pretty much utterly useless. You can attach yourself to enemies, and anytime you take damage, they take damage. Do not use this outside of CA. Glyph of the Stars. This is best used outside of CA. Now, outside of CA, it will heal, pulse stab, pulsing Condi cleanse, and grant the protection up front. And there's also a water field. This skill is one of the best utility. It's one of the best skills to use outside of CA. It helps you maintain your healing and your group support outside of CA. Even though that the CA version of it is a fantastic res, I would not hold this or save it. I would use this on a push, get it on cooldown as fast as possible, so you can use it as many times as possible throughout the fight. Now for the Celestial Avatar versions. Glyph of Alignment is a chunky heal and a Condi cleanse. I've seen heals from this over 9,000. Glyph of Equality takes that personal stun break and makes it a group stun break, as well as a Condi removal. Glyph of Unity. This is why you always save this for CA. Is it tethers you to allies, and anytime you are healed, they are healed as well. And we'll go over why that is so important in a little bit. And then Glyph of Stars, very similar to outside of CA, except inside CA, the healing is a bit more. It also revives downed allies, grants stability, grants regen and vigor. What it does not do is cleanse Condis. So if you choose to prioritize using Glyph of Stars for the res, not only are you going to be waiting for people to go down, just so you can res them up, you're going to be cleansing less Condis. So the way I look at it is, if you're in a situation where it happens to be off cooldown and some people go down and you can use it and get value out of it, go for it. But don't hold it waiting for people to go down. I think Banner is better suited for that. So that's your glyph skills. Now while we're here, we'll go over your Celestial Avatar skills. So first up is Cosmic Ray. This is your spam heal. It just sends a pulse to the ground, and we'll do it in game to show you what they look like. Seed of Life. This is a ground targeted ability. This is your main Condi cleanse inside of CA, and also does a nice little heal. The thing to remember about Seed of Life is that it is not on the global cooldown, so you can spam it while you're channeling skills such as Rejuvenating Tides. Lunar Impact is just a bigger version of Cosmic Ray. It is a very large burst heal. It is a blast finisher, and it does daze enemies, so there are a lot of times you'll see you're getting interrupts when you're using this. Rejuvenating Tides is probably the best AoE heal inside of CA, because it's pulsing and it heals really fast. This is the #1 priority for your quick draw interaction, which we'll go over in a little bit. And then Natural Convergence here. The only real benefit of this one is that first pulse gives stab, and I'll show you how to manage that and get the most value out of it. So we'll go back to game. And so here is your 1 spam. So what you want to do with these ground target abilities is place them just in front of you, because as you're running, you're walking through them. Same with 2, right? So you're dropping it, and 3. You're dropping it, and then it blasts. So you need to target those abilities slightly in front of you. These 3, especially if you're in the front of the party. You want to basically place these just in front of you. You want to put it so that someone's going to walk into it. If you're casting this on yourself, if you're just casting, these abilities on yourself, and especially if you're in the back of the group, you're not hitting anyone. You want to make sure that you're taking into consideration that those 1 and 3, for instance, Cosmic Ray and Lunar Impact have travel times, and then Seed of Life has a detonation time. So when you cast 1, it takes a little bit between the cast and the time that it actually hits the ground. Same with 3, and then 2 has a little delay on the blast. So just be aware of that. Okay, so for the last two skills, we have Rejuvenating Tides, which is your nice big pulsing heal. And then you have your natural convergence. Now the best way to do this is to use what's called stow weapon. So you can interrupt a skill. So I start it, I stow weapon and interrupt it. So you can find stow weapon, not there, under miscellaneous. So if you come down to miscellaneous here, stow draw weapon, I have it as left alt. Put your weapon away, take it out. When you put your weapon away, you cancel any active skills you're casting. Another good gameplay tip for the usage of Staff 2 is using the new personal target. So if you come down, you have set personal target, take personal target. So I bind mine to Control T, and then take is tilde. So for instance, if I set my personal target on the bear, if I'm over here doing damage, and my Staff 2 comes off cooldown, I can tap tilde, cast 2 on it, and then go back to doing damage. I always set my personal target on the commander, and that's where you should always put your Astral Wisp. So you're healing, take target, cast Wisp, come back. It's just a great way to make sure that this is in the correct area of the group. Anybody around the commander is now being healed. Very easy to do, very streamlined. Bind it to something helpful or something useful, familiar to you, so you can quickly swap those back and forth. It also helps if you want to, for instance, one spam your commander. A little bit here I want to go over is the pets. The pets play a decent role in the build as well. So the two pets I recommend are the Juvenile Brown Bear, aka Brownie. It has the ability called Shake It Off, which when you use it, you cure a condition off yourself and all nearby allies, 2 conditions off of 5 targets. Just really helps bolster your Condi cleansing capabilities. And then secondly, Larry the Turtle. Puts up a nice projectile dome, defensive dome. Again, also should heal around the caster, if I'm in the right build. Yep, heal around the caster when used. I don't know why the tooltip's not showing it, but it does. Those are really the only two that I run with. I don't think you need to run the Juvenile Blue Mama for protection anymore. You get plenty of protection off of your glyphs, and then the regen on the Fernhound. It's a 1.5 second cast, and the Fernhound has to stand still to do it. So if you're moving, it's being left behind, probably dying and not healing anyone. So I'd say stick with the brown bear and the turtle, and you'll do just fine. Now I'd like to go over the interactions or the way to optimize quick draw and lingering light. We'll start with quick draw. So as we mentioned before, quick draw reduces the cooldown of your first weapon skill used when you swap weapons. What this means is when you go into CA and come out of CA, there is a priority for the first skill you want to cast. What I've found most effective for myself is when you go into CA, you use skill 4 immediately. And we'll do that in a second, but there's one other thing to cover. The trick with quick draw is that it lasts for 5 seconds. If your skill does not finish before those 5 seconds are up, you will not get the cooldown reduction. So, in order to get this to work, you have to go into CA and then quickly cast 4 before this buff falls off. You just have enough time to get that cooldown reduction, and now you get another one. Now when you leave CA, you're going to get quick draw again. You'll see that pop up. And what I like to use is 2. So that's healing around everybody. That cooldown is reduced. I get another one. This is going to provide a lot of group healing, and it's going to help you regen your Celestial Avatar energy faster. So the way CA energy is generated is it generates more via heals, 1.5%. Damage is 0.75%. So the other buff we're interested in tracking or optimizing or keeping uptime is Lingering Light. So when you go into CA, you gain 20% healing. When you leave CA, you gain Lingering Light. So when I leave, there's Lingering Light. The cooldown on CA and the duration of lingering light are the same. So the goal here is to charge up our celestial energy to full before the cooldown and the buff drop off, so that we can get back in to CA and maintain some sort of percentage healing buff at all times. And one of the best ways to do that is with Glyph of Unity. So just before CA ends, you go into CA, you're doing your healing, you're saving people's lives, you're getting no bags. This lasts for 15 seconds. Just before it's up, you cast Glyph of Unity. Now that is going to persist. So you come out, you've used your Astral Wisp twice, you're healing everybody around you, you're getting heals, which is then in turn healing people because of Glyph of Unity while it's up, and you're trying to do some sort of damage, and that's, at that point, you're pretty much, you should be full on your Celestial Avatar, ready to go right back into it and into your healing. And you'll be able to see that in the clips video. So these are the two major things to track on Druid. I'd say these are the biggest impacts to improving your outgoing healing. So try to remember that you want to use Glyph of Unity just before your Celestial Avatar runs out, and prioritize in Celestial Avatar skill 4 for quick draw, and then when leaving, skill 2. The other options are in Celestial Avatar, skill 3, the Lunar Impact is one of your biggest heals, and if the group is low and you can get into CA, you can use 2 of these back to back to basically bring people to full health. The option for staff for quick draw would be skill 4. If we're pushing aggressively and you don't think we'll need the healing, you dropping 2 of these back to back is not only going to keep your group moving because of the Condi Cons on the Chilled, Cripple, and Emote, but it's going to lock a lot of people down. So skill 3 in Celestial Avatar, skill 4 in Staff are the other options for quick draw. And then, like I said, be sure you use Unity before you leave CA so that you can regen that as fast as possible, the Celestial Avatar energy, and then maintain this lingering light buff. So next up, we're going to have a little gameplay clip, and I'll kind of go over that. Alright, so this is one of our clips. This is an air keep. Pretty decent fight to analyze here. Kind of go over rotation and stuff, and you know, actual gameplay. So here we go. So right off the bat, we're engaging. So I'm casting Glyph of Stars out of CA to grant that stability, so that we don't get pulled and clear any Condis that we may get. Also, this gets it on cooldown right away, which starts that regen process, so I can get as many of these as possible. So I cast that off. We're all standing in it here. I instantly place skill 2 Staff on Archon, so that's now going to be healing around him. I send a Vines forward to hopefully catch some people in the front. Now I dropped Healing Spring, thinking maybe they would be pushing through, but they didn't, so this is not great. Now we start to push forward. I've entered into CA. Let me back up a little bit here. So there I flip in. I get the quick draw buff, as you see right here, and I'm casting skill 4 right away. And that comes up, that finishes, and it's a shortened cooldown. And I'm instantly casting skill 3 for burst heals. I've popped off my stun break just in case anyone's stunned, and now I'm popping off the Condi Cons big heal to make sure that everyone is healed up. And now I'm off cooldown on my Rejuvenating Tide, ready to cast that again. Using 2 for Condi Cons on us here. Here's my cursor. That's actually where I use the heal in the Condi Cons. Now what you're going to see here is my CA is ticking down low. Still healing through. This is when I pop Glyph of Unity. Glyph of Unity comes up right here. You can see the buff on the bar, and I'm about to exit CA. Now, because I'm spamming at the time, I believe I accidentally used skill 3 immediately, but it's not that bad because it is a good burst heal. So the cooldown reduction ends up on skill 3 instead of my intended skill 2. So that's kind of a misplay there. But then I cast skill 2 on Archon. I recast my skill 3 for another burst heal. You can see I have the Lingering Light buff. Now I don't quite get enough CA up. I'm not doing enough healing to get back into CA quick enough, so I lose my Lingering Light buff there. Now we're back. I'm dropping Healing Spring again, hoping that this time we have some enemies come through. I think it does go off here, and I'm getting back into CA. Same kind of misplay here. I casted skill 2 instead of a different skill immediately, so if we step back a little bit, that's too much. Fast forward back up to just before we pop CA. So I go into CA. There's the quick draw buff, but I'm spamming skills, so I accidentally use skill 2 on that quick draw instead of 4, so that kind of hurts me a little bit. Using the blasts for big heals. Rejuvenating Tides. More Condi Cleanse with skill 2. Using Natural Convergence to give some stability. I probably stay in it too long, but the good news is that when it ends, it does emob. Going with big heals here. I got a skill 2 off there. It's hard to see, it happens quick. So as I come out of CA here, you see the buffs Lingering Light and Quick Draw popping up. And I've cast 2 on Archon right away. Reduces that healing cooldown. I jump to him for another burst heal. I pop this off inadvertently. I think I was just pushing buttons at this point. I use CA, or I use Glyph of Stars, but it gets interrupted. I Vine, trying to grab some. Push skill 2 on Archon. I drop the CA right here, where it's, or not CA, I drop the Glyph of Stars right here where it's going to be most needed because we're going to stack and bomb down. I get back into CA. I'll go back a little bit. So Glyph of Stars drop up front here. Go back into CA. Get that quick draw buff. Use it on Rejuvenating Tides. Actually, this one off first. So that's one thing you have to be careful about, is if you go into CA and you cast Rejuvenating Tides for the quick draw buff, if you also cast 2, which is off of the GCD, off the global cooldown, it will finish before Rejuvenating Tides does, which will give the cooldown reduction to Seed of Life instead of Rejuvenating Tides. So it's something to be aware of, that when you enter into CA, cast 4 and let 4 finish before you cast 2. So again, I dropped a Healing Spring up top, probably hoping or thinking that maybe they'd push up. Dropped another Natural Convergence, but I think I canceled it that time. Step back. Yep, so I cast it and then cancel it for some stability. Still just going through healing rotations. So that pretty much wraps it up. That is the Druid healing build and gameplay. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully people can learn something. I think Druid is in a really good spot. Just need to really work on gameplay. And it's going to compete for top heals and cleanses pretty much every time. Take it into PvE. You know, practice with it, get that muscle memory down, align your skill, you know, keep on your skills to a familiar location, whatnot. And hopefully this helps, and I'll see you in game.